Welcome back to Teacher Jab channel on YouTube. I am Mr. Jablonski, and today we're going to be discussing ideas in Unit 1 and the Paleolithic and Neolithic eras. We're going to be comparing the two and analyzing some text, some images, and using our responder questions as per usual. So the first part we're going to be using for these ancient eras in history, we're going to be using an unsung. So remember, you need to underline important or highlight words, circle things you want to know more about, and that could be either you don't know what it is or you just want to know more about it, and then write some notes or summarize in the bullet next to it. This will be the text that we will begin reading today, and please look to your packets, read the paragraph, and we'll be right back. Please pause the video. So hopefully in your conversations after reading this, you noticed that this was a time of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Its origins were over 30,000 years ago. You may have noticed that they used primitive tools. Primitive meaning very basic, not advanced at all, and also covers a tremendous period of time. So we have many hominin or human-like creatures during this era. They're using primitive tools, and it was a time of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. You can use this link to find out more if you go home and type that in. There's a pretty neat timeline created by PBS showing you the evolution of different hominin creatures and when Homo sapiens came into play. And that's paid for by PBS, a pretty cool little website, if I could say so myself. Let's move on to a responder question. So, does the Paleolithic era include Homo sapiens? Please pause the video. Hopefully you noticed you went back to the reading that yes, the Paleolithic does include humans and that other creature, Neanderthals. Let's go to the next slide. So here is a cartoon drawing, using lots of research though, of the Paleolithic era. And you can see the image continues toward the bottom here. And you should have a full version of this printout version. I know this is a little hard to see on your little slides there. I want to take maybe a minute or two as a me thing, not a we thing, and analyze this piece of artwork and highlight some pieces, some important pieces of the Paleolithic era, and identify some key things that actually describe what this era entailed. So like I said, I'll give you about a minute or two to look through this as a me thing. Then, after that time, have some class discussion as a we thing, and we'll meet back as a class. So, please pause the video. And now that we're back, hopefully you noticed that people did hunting of all sorts of animals, and here we have a woolly mammoth. And it seems like they used the geography to help capture such a large animal, which could yield lots and lots of food and other things, like perhaps their clothing. And here we see this gentleman using, I'm going to switch colors here so you can see this a little better, using some maybe ash or some kind of basic paint to create cave paintings. Yep, the purple's cool. And we're seeing that they're using early tools. And here's an example of a spear here, and perhaps some bone tools as well, and using in fire. So these are some basic things that people were doing of this time period. Hunting and gathering, basic art, and using some stone tools, and not to mention also wearing some primitive clothing coming from these animals. And this pretty much describes pretty well the Paleolithic era. Let's move on. We're going to do another unsung, and in this unsung, we're going to be doing a little longer of a reading, and we're going to be discussing the Neolithic age. So I'll give you a moment. This is a me thing, so please read silently, highlighting certain parts of the text, and we'll be right back. Please pause the video. So hopefully you noticed that nomadic lifestyle has changed from hunting and gathering to stationary living or agriculture. What's another word for agriculture? So we're looking at this word here, agriculture. I'm going to circle it. kind of highlight it further. And can anyone think of what agriculture means? Hopefully, someone said it means farming. If you don't have that, please add that to your notes. And let's continue looking at the text. So there's some direct translations here. Paleolithic, meaning Old Stone Age, and Neolithic, meaning new. Neo means new, and lithic means Stone Age. This is the new Stone Age. And that's where humans started using more complicated or sophisticated tools. Please notice sophisticated on the word wall. Can you find it? Good. All right. Obviously, that's a pretty important word, and we're going to be using it throughout the year. There are two more web links here. One actually shows you going through in the Neolithic cave, and the other one shows some more ideas of human origin. I invite you to look through these at home, being that we can't go over them today, although we might check out the top one here tomorrow in class. But if you can't be there tomorrow, check it out at home. It's worth your while. So now I'll just move on to the next slide. And I'd like you to circle the changes you're seeing from the Paleolithic era to the Neolithic era. Circle those changes, talk with your group. This will be a we thing. I'll give you about a minute or two to analyze this image. You can enlarge it or walk over to the computer as needed, and we'll meet back. Please pause the video. Hopefully you noticed an array of things, and now we're going to use the responders. So please make sure they're running, and we're going to turn to this and see what you came up with. Please pause the video. So hopefully you looked at the text and the image after comparing the two eras, and it's still a Stone Age. That's what Neo and Lithic mean. If we start using other materials, the age will actually change. We'll go into that a little further. Here, I'd like for you to create a timeline comparing the two eras and about when was that shift. So using this text here and perhaps earlier text, you can use this space to create a timeline, and I can start it like this. And I want you to include when the shift occurred from Paleolithic and Neolithic. Put the dates on top. And how about the technology at the bottom? And this should be a fairly simple thing. I'll give you about 3 to 4 minutes to do this. And look at the evidence from previous slides to create this basic timeline. Please pause the video. Please review as a class. I invite a student to come up to the board and help fill in some of the answers here and make sure that all of the students are on the same page. I'll give you another minute or so to do that as a class, so please pause the video. After your discussion, you're probably wondering what some of these tools look like. Let's take a look at the next slide. Here are Neolithic tools. All different kinds of shapes, sizes, and maybe some subtly different kinds of stone. So I'd like for you to look at some of these, identify one, maybe this one, and guess, give your best guess for inference to what that thing might have done. Talk it over with your neighbor, see if you can identify maybe 4 of these, and then I want you to consider how are these tools created and how were they used. All right, so give it your best guess, how it works. We'll talk about it as a class, and I'll see you in 2 minutes. Please pause the video. Now that we're back, this one I circled originally is actually an axe head. You can see the notch made for the wood and the sharpened edge up here looks kind of like an axe. Or it could be a tool called a hoe, which is used for farming to help break the soil. Because remember, the Neolithic era is actually where agriculture begins, because we have stationary living. I'm sure you had no trouble with some of these, as these are arrowheads used for hunting and cutting implements. Here we have some more cutting implements, probably used for skinning a hide or more things at home as opposed to out on the hunt with the arrowheads. And these are not jewelry. These stones are actually ideal for creating fire. Yup, fire. You'd put some straw leaves in the hole here. You'd then take a stick with a bow and quickly rotate that stick, creating a high amount of friction and heat, therefore hopefully creating a form of fire. This would take a very long time. It took a skilled hand. However, if you're living a couple thousand years ago and you're cold, you want to get warm, you're probably going to use these guys. Pretty cool though, right? Okay, I'm going to give you two more responder questions, 17 and 18. And I want you to refer back to the information we covered earlier today in answering those questions. Please pause the video. So now that we're back, why did early man use stone tools for creating tools? Well, if you look at all the answers, A could be considered because steel was not yet invented, and man also did not have technology for bronze, and stone was easily available. So we're going to consider all three of them in this. Hopefully you have that in your conversation. If not, yep, I sometimes do that. Let's turn to the next. Hopefully you remembered that we discussed the Neolithic era, and most of the food came from agriculture or farming. It's still possible they are hunting animals, but the others aren't quite as likely, especially D. But we want to pay attention to that important shift of agriculture. That's a big, big change from one era to the next. Turning the slide, I'd like for you to examine this image, point out some important parts of it to help you answer this question, and also be able to explain why. So there should be some writing here. Please pause the video. The answer to this question is yes. You can notice the stationary housing. We're not living in caves or being nomadic. We have domesticated animals, and they're helping to plow a field here. You can see the plow entering the soil, breaking it up, making it easier for farming. And these two would definitely point to the Neolithic age as the new stone age. Turning the slide, here is a chart explaining some of the differences and reviewing some of the ideas we have used in discussing the Paleolithic and Neolithic era. Take a minute to review this or to study it at home. I think that's about all the time we have today, folks. Thanks for coming out, and I will see you next time.